years now. And we have the most fantastic policies and solutions in education. They're so good that all the other political parties actually follow them, even if they don't have them as their own policies. You see, we support grammar schools in every town and city in the country. And Theresa May said that she would copy our policy and implement grammar schools in every town and city, but her own backbench MPs blocked her from doing so, even though many of them have had the benefits of going to private schools or grammar schools themselves. And the Labour Party is completely opposed to grammar schools. They started to dismantle the grammar school system in 1965 when Shirley Williams was there as Education Secretary. And the number of grammar schools in this country went down from about 1,200 to just 163 today. But many of the top acolytes in the Labour Party send their kids to grammar schools, don't they? Harriet Harman sent her children to a grammar school. Jeremy Corbyn went to a grammar school. Diane Abbott sent her kids to a private school. They don't want other kids to have what they benefited from. What a bunch of hypocrites. No, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander and it's good for everyone. And if we have grammar schools in every town and city, that's going to benefit the working class children the most. Because they won't have to compete with more number of grammar schools in selective areas. But we also want technical schools in every town and city as well. And I started talking about parity of esteem between the academic system and the technical system and the vocational system a couple of years ago. And now it seems everybody else is copying UKIP again, because we're always the first with common sense ideas. Children are different. Children have different gifts and different abilities. Some are suited to an academic route, some are more gifted technically, some have vocational giftings, some would be suited to go into a special school with special educational needs, and others are gifted and talented in specialist areas like sport and art and music and drama, and they can go to specialist schools. But we shouldn't have a system where we see the academic stream is up here and everything else is of less value. Everything should be for a long time, and it is good to see other political parties starting to use that idea and take that idea on board, because it's very, very important to the children who are missing out by having a bog standard comprehensive educational system which tries to push everyone through an academic route, even though that's maybe not what they're best suited for. And the grade inflation that we've had over the last 30 years means that now, this year, it's possible to pass a GCSE maths exam with 20%. And all the people in the educational establishment pat themselves on the back about how wonderful it is that more people are passing their exams on their own system. But England and Wales and Scotland are falling further and further down the international PISA rankings, and so we're now below Vietnam in maths and science. What an absolute disgrace for this country, which in many ways gave the world the modern education system, which has been copied and replicated around the world because it's been so good over many, many centuries, but it's now been run down by the Lib Lab Con Uniparty, which rules the political establishment today. So we need to change that. And one of the worst things that ever happened in education was Tony Blair's arbitrary target of trying to send 50%. John Major's administration turning all the polytechnics into universities, which shut off a whole route of technical education for school leavers which they benefited from before. Our higher education system has been decimated because of that. There's 2.4 million students in this country at higher education institutions. And probably half of them shouldn't be there, because half of them would be far better off doing an apprenticeship or getting a job when they're 18. difficult for them, and then they wouldn't be saddled with an average debt of £45,000 when they come out of university at 21, often more stupid when they come out than when they go into education. And the reason why they're more stupid when they come out is because they're pickled in Marxism. And this is a big problem in universities, and it's spreading into schools as well. Left-wing ideology is ubiquitous. And one of the great problems of universities is those once great institutions which were open and were a forum for everyone to express their ideas, are now closing down ideas and attacking freedom of speech rather than encouraging freedom of speech. And you see that all over the country. Now there's a new universities minister called Sam Dima. And I think he's been listening to us as well, because every now and again he comes out and he says virtue signals, and he says we must have more freedom of speech at universities, we must make sure there's freedom of speech. But actually he says that, but nothing happens. The attacks and restrictions on freedom of speech go on. And the reason for that is because of the Equalities Act 2010. And while that's in place, we cannot have freedom of speech. You can talk about it all you want, but Section 149 of the Equalities Act 2010, which is one of the worst pieces of legislation ever drafted in this country and put onto the statute books, Section 149 is called the Public Sector Equality Duty. And that means that all public sector bodies, which include universities and schools and NHS trusts and police forces, they all have to foster good relations with people who have protected characteristics. And they also have to pay particular regard to the needs of people with protected characteristics. So what that effectively means is that universities and student unions have to write codes of conduct which will say if someone feels that somebody's saying something that is offensive, they can go to the university and the student union and say, that person is not fostering good relations with me, will you no-platform them? And the university will say, yes, we will no-platform you, because they have to, because if they don't, they're breaking the Equalities Act 2010. And the Equalities Act 2010 was written into our law because of the European Union Equal Treatment Directive in 2003. So the only way that we can restore freedom of speech in university is to leave the European Union and then repeal the Equalities Act 2010. Abolish the Equalities and Human Rights Commission and the Government Equalities Office, which sit at the centre of the £1 billion industry of equality, diversity, inclusion officers, which pump out politically correct nonsense every day and every hour of their lives to justify their existence. Has looked at that and agreed to make that part of our new interim manifesto, and it's already ruffled a few lefty feathers. Now, one of the biggest items of correspondence I get in my inbox as education spokesman is people worried about what's happening in schools, and particularly primary schools, with the rise of another politically correct thing that no one had ever heard of 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, I doubt many people had ever heard of the word transgender. But today, it's ubiquitous. Everybody's talking about transgenderism. And you have to agree, because if you don't agree, you're transphobic. It's just like all these political correct things. They try to slur you and smear you if you don't agree with a very narrow set of hard left ideologies. You're either Islamophobic or racist or bigoted or whatever, or, you know, I've been called a white supremacist. But my favourite insult actually is I'm a homophobic steak of burnt gammon. That's racist if they say that about me. You know. But getting back to this, because it is a very, very serious issue, and people are really concerned that they can't actually speak the scientific objective truth anymore. And just this week we heard, if you'll excuse my language, a person, an officer in a magazine at Durham University was fired for saying women don't have penises. Excuse my language, but I was a science teacher, so I think I can actually use scientific language. But it's true, women don't have penises. And we should be able to say that without anybody firing us. Chromosomes, you are a male, you are a boy or a man. If you have female anatomy and female chromosomes, you are a female, you are a girl or a woman. And teachers are being suspended and fired for misgendering people. I mean, there was someone who was suspended from his job in Oxfordshire, it was in the papers, and there was a girl who wanted to be called a boy. He called her a girl by mistake, even though he was trying to adhere to the school's transgender policy. Someone complained, he was suspended and fired. And this is all at a time where recruitment and retention of teachers is at an all-time low. And the fake Conservative Party is pushing this politically correct nonsense, and no wonder the teaching profession and schools are in such a mess. But parents are so worried about it. And so many of the parents who write to me saying, I'm thinking of homeschooling my children. They don't want this to be happening in schools. But it's going to get worse. Because what's happened just recently in July is the Department for Education have published some new guidelines about compulsory sex and relationships education, which has to be LGBT inclusive. Which means that at the moment, this stuff can be taught, but parents have a right to remove their children from lessons. From next September, when it's introduced as compulsory, they will not have a right to remove their children from lessons. So all kinds of LGBT, transgender activists will be going into primary schools, and all children will be learning about gender fluidity and the idea of the modern family, where the normal family of a mother and a father and a child are just one of 20 different options you can choose from in your everyday life. Father and father, mother and father, mother and mother, two men and a dog, and four wives, and so on, or three men, I don't know. And this is what they're going to be taught. If you're a parent and you're worried about this, and I know hundreds of thousands and millions of you are, you have a party that you can vote for which will stop the madness, and that party is UKIP. I had more time to talk. I mean, I've got all these notes. I'm only on page 1, so I do have to finish now. What I would say, just quickly, is I put together a leaflet on the ideology behind political correctness, which is cultural Marxism. You might see these outside on some of the stalls. Do pick one up. And there's some further reading on there. Get yourself informed about cultural Marxism and neo-Marxism, postmodernism, the ideologies behind it. And Rudi Dutschke's phrase, the long march through the institutions, really encapsulates the earlier ideas of neo-Marxists like Gransky and Horkheimer and Marcuse of the Frankfurt School, which some of you may have heard of. And today there's an organisation called Common Purpose, which boasts 70,000 graduates. These graduates are trained to do leadership of a certain style in the institutions, and get into national government, local government, the NHS, the police forces, even business, the schools, all the institutions, and push the ideology that the Common Purpose teaches them. They're a very shadowy organisation, but something is going on there. I've been touring the country a little bit talking about this. I've been to 15 different venues over the last few months. I'm coming to some more later on. But just before I go, quickly, I'm going to give you some homework, because this is the education speech, so I think I'm allowed to give you some homework. I haven't given anyone some homework for like 2 years since I've been teaching. But what I want you to do is look for the consultation. There is a consultation on the government's plans for compulsory sex and relationships education, and it's open till the 7th of November this year. Just do a Google search for it. I'll put the link on my website later. Fill in that consultation, because the more people that respond to it saying that they don't want it, the more likely it is to have an effect. Get yourself informed, and also do stand for election. We are operating in the political sphere, and hopefully, as far as I can tell, we are a party that now is the only true opposition to this politically correct, anti-free speech, cultural market policy. So stand in the local elections next year, stand for police and crime commissioners, stand in the general election, something you may never have thought of. Stand for the General Synod of the Church of England in 2020. The reason I say that is because the Church of England controls and runs an awful lot of very good church schools in this country. But it's been targeted as an institution by people who have left-wing ideology now. They are going to be running in the election for the General Synod in 2020. We want small c conservatives. We want real patriots to be in the Church of England who can then run the Church of England schools and ensure that our children are not indoctrinated with leftist idiocy. We need to take our institutions back, and we need to take our country back, and I'm here in UKIP with you all, because I know that we are the only force that can truly make Britain great again.